Welcome to the Womlex Show. You're listening to Alexander Graf and Wilhelm Blom. We are today talking with Axel Schmidt and Dirk Ramhorst from Wacker Chemie. Wacker Chemie is a very big corporate company in the heart of Munich, and they're selling about 5 billion euro in the space of the chemical industry. And Dirk and Axel are responsible for countless digital initiatives, which are remarkable for a company like Wacker, which is at home in the B2B industry, usually not known for digital initiatives. And we are talking about their experience on how to transform the Wacker organization, how to invest into new internal business models, and how it works out at Wacker Chemie. So please enjoy Dirk and Axel at the Womlex Show. Welcome to the Womlex Show, our very first episode recorded on a remote setup in Kiel, Munich and Amsterdam. Today our guests are Dirk and Axel from Wacker Chemie. So most of our listeners probably won't know what Wacker Chemie is about, but it's a very interesting, huge B2B business. And I'd like to introduce to Axel to explain us a little bit about himself and Wacker.
Yeah, Wacker is, as you said, a very interesting business, not very well known because we are at the beginning of the food chain and the value chain. It's a 5 billion euro business. Majority is owned by the family, which is named Wacker as well. And Wacker is 105-year-old business, and we are in various business supplying into almost any kind of industry, automotive industry, electronics industry, rubber industry, cosmetics industry, and a lot also in the photovoltaic solar industry. And we are in 4 business divisions, and multiple central departments are supporting these businesses. And this is very exciting for me. I'm a Wacker veteran. I'm 25 years with a company already, had multiple jobs, mainly in marketing and in management and customer-facing management, I would say. Running a joint venture, running locations, running small businesses, and now I'm part of the Wacker digital team.
So, and I on LinkedIn, I can see your role is also described as Chief Digital Officer, CDO of Wacker's digital front end. Actually, same description or more or less same description is on Dirk's LinkedIn page. Maybe Dirk, can you also introduce yourself and explain us what's the differences here between CDO 1 and CDO 2?
Okay. Hello, everybody. Here's Dirk Ramhorst. Pleasure for me to also to participate. Usually I'm in Kiel, but now I'm in Munich, so I'm the moving target in our podcast here. So my role is I'm the CDO overall and CIO. So therefore I'm kind of bridging Axel's role, and we have actually another partner also responsible for the operations part, who is not in the call today. And I'm responsible for the transformation and in interfacing also to the IT role as a CIO. I'm also laying out the foundation. That means I'm bringing all technologies into the different use cases and enable the organization in order to deliver those use cases and make them real rather than slideware.
Can you give us an overview about like what the digital challenges are about in a B2B company like Wacker? Because if anybody from the outside would look on a company like Wacker as a very big B2B conglomerate, nobody would assume that there are so many B2B challenges, and we will deep dive into this in the podcast. You have a lot of digital initiatives, but do you have the same challenges like a Metro or Tom Taylor or Otto Group when it comes to digital, or it's kind of a different challenge you're facing?
Okay, most of those companies you mentioned are retail companies. I mean, Otto as a huge catalog business, but they have a limitation in regards of production. One of our core strengths is production. So one of the core areas is we call it digitalization in operations, processes, and R&D. are use cases around exactly those areas. So how can digital technology help us beyond the level of automation we have achieved to further optimize production in terms of manage unexpected downtimes, in terms of make sure that they don't show up, make sure that we have an improved yield. Energy is a huge topic. So how can we use digital technologies in order to improve our energy consumption, or in order, for example, use data that we have collected in the past in order to use simulations in order to shorten R&D times and time to market. So this is one area. The second area is Axel's area of responsibility, the digital front end. I think we will elaborate a little bit later. In short summary, this is everything facing the market and the customer. More to come later. And then finally, we have the so-called, let's say, umbrella, which is dealing with the transformation and foundation, where on the one hand side, we make sure that we really try to help everybody, means every employee in Wacker, in order to be part of the digital transformation journey. And secondly, as I mentioned already, to lay out the prerequisites and enabler that technology-wise, capability-wise, and even organizational-wise helps us to make the Wacker organization become more digital. What is important, we are not a digital unit that is digital, and the rest of Wacker is not digital. Our role is the role of the catalyst. That means our mission is in order to make Wacker more digital rather than be the digital and the rest is analog.
If you look on the whole market, and there's a lot of chemical companies like in different sector of the chemical industry, would you perceive yourself as a digital leader in this industry?
At least our vision is that when we started 2 years ago, in 2017, our ambition is that within 10 years, we become the leader for digitalization in our industry. It's a journey. We have started to travel, so to speak. And I think we're not there yet, but in certain areas, we have created a huge momentum, which is unique also in the industry. And one key area here is, so it's my second time I'm a CDO. I was CDO in BASF before. And of course, there's a scale of 10 times between Wacker and BASF. So Wacker is much smaller, but as Axel already mentioned for the introduction of Wacker, we are publicly listed, but still family owned. And this is a major difference because a shareholder in person of the family has a much longer interest in sustainable development. And this is very helpful for transformational journeys like the digital journey we have ahead of us.
And if you're like overseeing a part of the transformation also, how did it start? Like the digital initiatives at Wacker? So was it like a customer facing problem, saying that it took too long to build like a new interface to the customer, and then you decided, okay, we need to do a little bit more about digitalization? Or was it more like a process problem where you say, okay, we're losing so much money because our planning internally is kind of too old school. We need to upgrade here. So what was the main catalyst for this development so far?
There's a clear yes in between all the two examples you gave. Actually many initiative kind of bottom up has started years ago. So Axel and myself, we don't have invented all these things. Some of the activities, at least half of it in the current state, have been created before we showed up. But it was part of I'm now with Wacker, not like Axel for decades. I'm only there for 3 years. And it was part of my 100-day reflection that I recognized we had, let's call them a couple of mushrooms. So everywhere digital came up. And it was not orchestrated. It was not fertilized. It was not structured. And so when we founded Wacker Digital about 2 years ago, the idea was in order to orchestrate those bottom-up initiatives and create them with an, let's say, overarching umbrella, which is now the program we have created. And it was like exactly like you said. Some of those early mushrooms has died because there was no value in. Some others have been created in the meantime, and this is what we are now doing. We really act as a catalyst to the organization. We fertilize ideas also by a central budget. We bring certain, let's say, coaching consultancy in terms of methodologies to the businesses and to the areas of interest. And with this, we have created a huge portfolio of different digital use cases in all different aspects within the organization. There's hardly any area which is not, let's say, interacting with us. And meanwhile, we have also mirrored our structure. So the one I have explained with these 3 modules, also into the regions. That means in North America and in China, they follow the same structure with maybe some specific use cases around the individual businesses they host there.
Maybe just to understand why China and North America is important for you. So from the 5 billion in revenue you're overall making, so how important is Europe versus North America versus China?
Asia is the most important region for Wacker, to the contrary of other German companies. When I joined Wacker 25 years ago, it was the total opposite. So these regions are extremely important, and North and Central America and in China are also focus regions, but we are now, even with the Wacker Digital program, expanding with workshops and digital weeks and so on into other regions like Middle East and Southeast Asia.
So then how are you dealing with the ecosystem in China? Because obviously if China is such an important target market for you, the digital ecosystem is completely different than what we are accustomed to in Western countries. Are there strategies that you apply that differ per continent?
Yeah, I give you an example in social media. In China, everything in social media is different than in the rest of the world. And there are very few global social media companies, but in China you have even a very successful company with WeChat combining businesses which are done in the Western world by different branches of companies. And that means we have to apply a different strategy in China for example, social media. So we work with local companies there. As we do here with Twitter and LinkedIn, we do it in China with Baidu and WeChat and so on.
But how does it work? So when I would paint a picture about how to sell chemical products in China, I would assume there must be a big field force, like knocking on doors. Not to speak about marketplaces at all. So how does this came up that like digital channels are so important for Wacker instead of a field force, or is it like equally important for the Wacker business case?
No, I would say when it comes not to the digital part but to the general Wacker business model, the difference are not that big. Except with the exception that in China we use more indirect channels. We have a much broader distribution network. Each market segment has their own specialized distributor, versus in the Western world we work more with general, bigger chemical distributors. And roughly 20% of our business is done through distributors on a global scale, a higher percentage in China and also in Southeast Asia. The more you go away from our core heritage, the higher the distribution share becomes, which is, by the way, also a potential for digitalization. We'll discuss that later. But the standard business of Wacker is selling technical products, which have very good technical advice and a top-notch local customer service. So we are a people-driven business. And when we always discuss digitalization of the front end, we always have to remember that our people and our employees are the assets selling our products to our customers. And that is especially true for customer service and technical engineers.
And then how do you work together with these customers? Because I saw on your website that you service clients in a wide range of industries, like the automotive industry or in renewable energy. I can imagine that you're a key component of the solutions that they provide, and therefore also in optimizing and digitizing your value chain play an incredibly important role. Do you also co-create digital solutions with your clients?
Let's talk about the product range first. Yes, we do co-creation also and co-development with our customers. And yes, we provide key ingredients to our customers. This could be a key ingredient in the sense of that is only 2% of a formulation of a coating, architectural coating, for example, but it's a magic ingredient. It's an important ingredient. But it could also be a rubber which is later transformed into a part used in a car. Or it could be silicon, a solar silicon, then later transformed into a solar cell and into a solar module. So we are always at the beginning of this value chain. And digitalization plays a role in how we interact with our customers. So, of course, customer relationship management, but also e-business is very important for us. We have an extremely high share of sales through our e-channels, which are currently still very transactional, but over half of our sales are performed through e-channels, online shop, and EDI connections, and that is leading in the industry already.
So I'd like to understand this a little bit better. So there is an online shop in China where like Chinese industrial companies are ordering services and products from Wacker. Is that correct?
Correct. But it's this online shop is a global online shop, and it works globally. It works as well in China. And by the way, the biggest customers of the online shop are in China.
And does it work like the same way as online shop customer strategies are working in Europe? So is it like, do you go to Baidu and put some advertisements online and merchandise merchandise online and sell your products, or is it like totally different? Is it like you're seeing customers that had been acquired by your field force now using the online shop and order stuff?
It's exactly the second. It's customers which are our regular direct customers, which are converted into online business. And every customer has its own online shop, its own catalog. We will change that. We will open that up to a really online business that customers can, I would say, engage them with us on the online channel and order products even beyond their catalog.
And you've talked about like new business models. So is the online shop then in China like a new business model, or are we talking about like a subscription business model or like a marketplace business model where you're heading to?
Yeah, when we talk about new business models, we mean not the online shop. The online shop is part of our customer experience cluster, and in the customer experience we have a digital commerce area, and this is definitely where we put in the online shop and where we work on improving our online presence. But when we talk about digital business models, this is completely something else. We have a huge business model innovation program we can touch later. And part of that was also, I would say, a very good transformational experience, which we called the Silicon Valley Challenge. And Dirk and I can explain that a little bit more in depth. Because this goes hand in hand, digital transformation and thinking and developing of new business models. This is really important that this is because it's all about the creativity of our own employees. And by the way, one business model we have out there currently, and that's a 3D printing business model.
Maybe we can elaborate on this on the business model innovation stuff here, because it sounds like that you are ahead of most of the retailing businesses, which I took as examples at the beginning, Otto and Peek & Cloppenburg, and all the others. Most of them don't have like an innovation challenge, and there is like the Silicon Valley tour of the C-level of the executives, but there's no innovation tour. So is there like a program where yes, Willem and I could apply if we have like a good idea how to sell chemical products?
Absolutely. There's a full-fledged business model innovation program. But this all was started a year ago, mainly by Dirk with the Silicon Valley Challenge. And this was the kickoff, but now we are really following up with boot camps and deep dives. I will explain that a little bit later, but perhaps, Dirk, we start with the Silicon Valley Challenge.
Yeah, actually, Alexander, we did exactly what you said. So I brought over a group of senior executives out of our board and the managing directors for North America into the Valley, and we visit a couple of startups. We went to Stanford and all the things. I'm almost up to 6 times a year in Silicon Valley in order to manage network and relationship to this ecosystem. And during this trip in autumn 2018, the idea was born to broaden this basis of this experience. So all the participants of the executive team found the inspiration so valuable that we said, okay, we have to open it. And we started something that name-wise Axel already introduced. We called it Silicon Valley Challenge, and we invited every single employee of Wacker, almost all the 15,000, to apply for the Silicon Valley Challenge. We have received 370 applications from more than 23 countries. We reached the almost full landscape of Wacker. For example, we have a sales location on the Philippines, and out of 5 employees, 1 applied. So really the full global organization applied. Axel and myself, we had a huge challenge in order to review more than 2 days of video, because we asked all the applicants in order to apply with some kind of inspiration. And most of the applications have been videos, small YouTube videos, small recorded videos, some of them very, very professional. And so Axel and myself and our third CDO, we had the challenge to funnel this down to a number of 18. And so in February this year, 18, or actually it was the group of 19 Wacker employees from China, from Korea, from Singapore, from Europe, from Sweden, from Brazil, and from the US. Went to the Valley. They lived 4 weeks in San Francisco. They worked in WeWork spaces. They lived in Airbnb apartments, and they were fully, let's say, integrated in the, let's say, startup ecosystem. And after those 4 weeks, they came to Munich in order to pitch 4 ideas they have generated out of 100 ideas they have generated. And actually, it was a great success in 2 aspects. First of all, 3 out of the 4 pitches survived the Shark Tank. So we found board members as well as business owners to say, hey, this is a great idea. I would like to support. And they're still alive. So they are in the process of bringing those topics into the market. And the second, and for me in my transformational role, even more important, with this global invitation to all employees, even the single person have realized that we take digitalization very serious, and this was an overall success.
That sounds incredible. So almost unbelievable. And I saw Willem smiling. We have often heard about like innovation programs at other company, but usually it stops when it comes to using budgets. So maybe a trip to Silicon Valley is fine, but funding it is usually like the KO criterium for most of these projects. So do you have like a dedicated budget for those projects, or do all the departments need to establish a budget on their own when there's like the winning ideas to be financed?
No, again, in the role of the catalyst, we have been the ones that started the whole thing. So the Silicon Valley Challenge was on a central budget. We even sponsored the trips, the business trips, so the travel costs was on our budget as part of the central budget. But now, in terms of making those ideas more mature enough in order to bring them to the market, is now the role of the sponsors. And those sponsors are part of a business leaders function in special business divisions or regions. So it's always a kind of matrix relationship. And they have to bring this in ideas. The same goes along with the digital ideas. So even we let's say evaluate new technologies like artificial intelligence, the value has to be generated and documented and monitored, means controlling wise shown up in the businesses. So it's not us showing how valuable digitalization for Wacker was or until now, but it's the businesses. And we have, for example, a so-called Wacker operation system, which is like a continuous improvement program in Wacker. And there we have a specific flag in the reporting showing that the one or other measure is related to a digitalization topic.
And this program being kicked off with the Silicon Valley Challenge is now, I would say, even transforming more people, because as Dirk said, we had 370 applicants for the Silicon Valley Challenge, and now we invited all these applicants for so-called boot camps, business model innovation boot camps, where they can learn more about how to ideate and how to develop a business model. And we went through that already in North and Central America, and 4 more ideas came up. For example, a Wacker loyalty program. We will not implement a Wacker loyalty program, but the core parts of a Wacker loyalty program, for example, customer segmentation, could be applied to businesses. And 3 more ideas came up with there in the North America in the boot camp, which is a total of 4 working days. It's a kickoff, then it's a series of webinars, and then it's a 2-day workshop. And then we went to China with that. Now we are in Singapore. And in fall, September, October, we will come to Germany for the remainder of the people to be invited, and not only the applicants of the Silicon Valley Challenge, but also further nominees nominated by their divisions and central departments. So at the end, roughly 200 people will go through this program, business model innovation, because for us it's very important that we are very strong in product innovation at Wacker, and we are extremely strong in process innovation. Because we are a chemical company, we are a process company, but the whole chemical industry still, I would say, has a way to go on business models. There in the chemical industry, you see business models, especially for farmers, smart farming, and you see marketplaces, and you see sometimes 3D printing. But beyond that, we even, with all these ideas and efforts, we even struggle. And sometimes it's only an app which comes out, only a new feature for existing customers, but still good enough, because we see digital not only as a substitute, not as a substitute for our current business, but more as an enhancement for our current business.
Yeah, the programs I know about when it comes to these innovation programs, usually the implementation of the idea stops when the teams are interacting with the current e-commerce, ERP, digital technical initiatives. So let me give you an example. When I heard the last time about such a program at the Otto Group a couple of years ago, there was a lot of ideas coming up how to optimize like the online shop, how to optimize the return experience, and the answer usually by the departments was, yeah, we are working on this. It takes another year or 2 years, but there's so many IT stuff going on. We can't integrate your idea just because you've won like the competition into that. So how do you manage that? So I guess there's a couple of ideas where technical integration is needed. How do you manage that?
And this is exactly where my double role comes into the game. So when I was CDO my first time in BASF, I was only CDO, and I was let's say partly connected to the IT department, but now I'm in the double role, and therefore I can make sure that whenever we are, let's say, in this kind of ideation phase, that we provide an adequate support from the first minute in order to do some rapid prototyping, start thinking in certain strategic solution rooms or frames, which allow us also strategic-wise in order to manage the whole thing. I mean, the idea, and of course my IT role is we have in a certain way to manage complexity, because with an increased complexity, many times you have also increased costs. So therefore we have always to find a ratio between supporting ideas, being innovative, but on the other side, operational-wise, make sure that the costs do not explode. And in this double role, I can really make sure, really from when an idea is born, that we implement those ideas. We help to implement the ideas, and we maybe we can attach also a kind of godfather, patron to those teams creating ideas in order to make sure that we can implement them.
I think also key is that we have good idea management. When we started Wacker Digital 2.5 years ago, we performed 30 workshops, 15 with our customers, 15 internally, and all these consultant speech here. We did a lot of pain point analysis and touch points analysis and so on. But at the end, we had, I would say, a basket of over 300 ideas just on the customer experience side. And then it's very important to cluster these ideas and to match them with our IT capabilities and our standard IT provided by strategic partners, and in some selected cases to add something new. And that's where we discuss, of course, with the IT department. But on top, now we're in the second phase and we concentrate more on the business models. And now we are we're kicking around 55 plus business model ideas. Some of them are completely stupid, but some of them could be very interesting going forward.
So what I really admire in your approach is that you organize the Silicon Valley Challenge and the best ideas that came up, you try to implement them in improving your processes and involved the business leaders into this process as well. What we also see in many B2B companies is that when more radical innovations come out of these programs, that they set up corporate startups to implement these ideas. Is that something that's on the table for you as well? Or do you really want to ensure that the ideas are being fueled by the business?
We have one of them. We have one corporate startup in the 3D printing space. And that's a semi-digital business model because the transaction with the customers are performed digitally through web shops, through upload of 3D designs, through payment, online payment, and so on. So it's not completely digital because we still provide a physical part. By the way, that's always in the chemical industry, something we provide something physical normally. And that's why the total digitalization and totally new digital business models in the chemical industry, like marketplaces, are relatively rare because it's still about physical products. But we have a corporate startup implemented 3 years ago already. And if needed, we will do it again because we realize that sometimes it's good to have at arm's length to some of your businesses.
Last week, I've interviewed one of my permanent guests in the Kassenzone.de podcast, Florian Heinemann, and we are often talking about digitalization of B2B companies and B2C retailing companies. And one of his main advices is that there's like no best way from all the options you have on the table, investing in startups, starting new internal startups, investing in VC funds, and like 10 other options. You need to do everything. So you need to take a part of your innovation budget. Let's say it's like 100 million a year or whatever, and invest in really crazy stuff in Berlin, London, and Madrid. So I can understand his motivation about saying this, but how do you look on that when you from a like internal corporate perspective out of Munich?
I mean, there's a huge ecosystem around us, and one part of our digital initiative is also to use this ecosystem in terms of interacting with startups. One major point of interaction here in Munich is the so-called Center of Entrepreneurship, Unternehmertum. We heavily interact with, and we do it in order to interact with startups in terms of doing external R&D. Learn from them, use them in terms of service providing, but it's also learn from them in terms of what is their attitude. And this is something very important while talking about transformation. I mean, somehow we are also a startup. I mean, 104-year-old startup, but the founding family is, as Axel mentioned in the beginning, is still part of the corporate setup. Mm. And unfortunately, what has gone lost in terms of the size is the entrepreneurial thinking. And so many topics related to this area of new work as part of digital is related to become more agile, be more, let's say, open to risk, have a better error of mistake culture. And it's to be more entrepreneurial. And this is also something that is very important for us in order to bring the organization into a certain movement towards, or openness towards digitalization. And so ecosystems around startups is very important, and we have many good successes. So the example that Axel elaborated is more the exception to use this startup platform in terms of internal startup, because we really try. Our intention is really to help Wacker to become more digital, rather than form digital units around Wacker that are digital. And so this is our main purpose.
Mm-hmm. Okay, got it. And I guess that the big word platform economy also is now part of your internal discussions. When we are discussing this with clients and other podcast guests, it's always about, like, instead of just selling once to a customer, it is now everything is about owning the direct access to the customer and renting the relationship out to other vendors. So when I look at Wacker and the opportunities you have before you in the chemical industry, I can think about like a marketplace infrastructure or like a platform infrastructure where you are defining the access to end users. In your case, it's like B2B users using your products. Could you imagine something like this happen in your industry, like onboarding other chemical vendors, selling over a Wacker marketplace?
Yeah, definitely marketplaces. That's what's happening currently in every industry, as well the chemical industry. And there are different, I would say, intruders or different sorts of companies exploring these fields. These are the chemical distributors. They are a platform per definition. They just have to digitalize themselves. Then there are digital chemical producers. A company, for example, Lanxess is exploring that. They started their own marketplace. There are smaller startup companies. As Dirk mentioned, this is the ecosystem we are in, not just IT startups, but as well here, for example, startups going into that field of marketplaces. And then you should never forget the Amazons and the Alibabas of the world, like the digital disruptors. So these four groups have currently formed, we guess, 40 to 50 marketplaces in the chemical industry. And not 40 to 50 will survive. They will probably 3, 4, 5 will survive at the end. And this trend is going on mainly in Europe and Asia, a little bit in the United States. This marketplace is coming relatively late compared to other marketplaces in the B2C or B2B world. But because it's relatively complicated to do chemical business, you have to think about product safety, you have to think about compliance, you have to think about how to use these products and so on. But at the end, these marketplaces are starting as matchmakers, and later they are adding fulfillment services. We also looked into this. We said, okay, is that an interesting option for us to expand Wacker? But at the end, we said, no, we should stick to our core business, which is distributing, producing and distributing our products to our customers. But we started trying out and using some of these marketplaces parallel to our classical chemical distribution channels.
And to add, if you look into potential areas of disruption, I mean, the chemical industry, and this is one reason why the whole chemical industry is maybe not the front-leading innovator in terms of digitalization. In order to disrupt this very acid-rich industry, it's on the production side very challenging because you talk about millions and billions of costs in terms of sunk costs in terms of infrastructure. But platform-wise, you can bring a company like Wacker, which is very much related to innovation, to technical services like Axel elaborated earlier. You can bring a company like us into a commodity space by just bridging or building up a gap between us and our customers by introducing a platform. And this is why the idea of thinking about new business models is on our side to have this momentum rather than being reactive. And this is very important for us, so that we try to think about disruption on our end rather than being disrupted.
Mm. And being disrupted usually means also that you need to have access to resources that help you to not get disrupted. If I recall other discussions with companies based in Munich, there was always the issue of being short on the HR side. So it's very, very hard to find experienced digital personnel, or the competition for experienced digital personnel is so tough that a couple of business cases won't support the salary structure anymore. So how do you look at that? So I think Wacker is missing like a B2C a brand. So you're a B2B brand. So by definition, you're not the BMW also based in Munich. Everybody knows and everybody wants to work for. So how do you find people and how do you overcome the recruitment challenge?
Okay, this is a good one, which is partly related to digital, but it's also related to another challenge I have in IT, because I have a demographic challenge in IT. My organization that I took over 3 years ago, before we started formally and structured to run digital, is at that point of time was 55 years of age. That means out of my team here in Germany, I'm challenging, or I'm facing the challenge to recruit more than 100 people. In an area, like you said, Munich, LinkedIn is telling me, Munich has more than 20,000 open IT positions. So, okay, what is the relevance of Wacker, IT in specific, in this kind of environment where you have the German headquarters for Google, Microsoft, IBM, IoT, et cetera, like companies in BMW. So we started running a campaign, and for the people listening to the podcast, it's very difficult to see what I put in here right now is we started employer branding for Wacker, using terms in the IT language like hacker, but it's also a means of kind of hacking wood. And we're saying during the day, people, and this is it was a poster at the major railway station and close to university in Munich, but it was also this kind of ad cards which you find in restaurants all over Schwabing and some other places where usually students are going for lunch and dinner. And the idea was that, for example, in the postcard I have here in my hands, during the day, you protect cybersecurity-wise corporation, and the evening you hack yourself. Means you, and this is somebody hacking wood. So therefore, it was well recognized, and till now, even in areas like data scientists, we have had no issues in order to find our staff, especially in those modern things. Currently, we're facing more challenges in order to recruit people that help us to move our data center into the cloud, and therefore we have to replace people that have worked 40 years in the data center. And now we have to find skills and people that replace those skills that we're going to lose because of age. And this is more the challenge. We have, for example, in starting effectively August last year, started building up a so-called service for or center for analytics services. Meanwhile, we have more than 10 data scientists here in Munich built up, and something that people told me is more like impossible. But we succeeded, and the idea is that we use people that have an physical, chemical, biological background in terms of the research they have done, and we now bring them on the same page regarding data science by a joint education. So we don't have recruited data science, we have educated people into data science.
Well, Alexander, it's very interesting what you said, because it reminded me of my own CV, because I graduated in Munich and I wanted to stay in Munich at that time. And I applied at a job at BMW, and they didn't want me. So I ended up in a trainee program at Wacker 25 years ago. And now after all these years in different jobs and all these opportunities, going abroad and going back and managing people and having a decent salary and having a good life. And unbelievable good work environment, also by our colleagues. I never regretted that I was not taken by BMW. And recently, a year ago, I met a young kid just graduating in math and in a tournament of a board game, Settlers of Catan. And he fascinated me with his brightness. And then I said, you should meet Dirk Ramhorst, and he's building up a data science team. And now he works for Wacker. And I'm sure 25 years from now, he will still work for Wacker.
I would have a hard time to sign this with blood, so to say. But maybe 25 years ago, it would be very hard to attract such a talent. Who would have gone then to BMW. I don't know what the brand value of BMW was 25 years ago. I think it was like kind of the Opel kind of brand recognition.
No, it was already okay at that time, and they had in this trainee program they advertised that with one stay in South Africa, and in Wacker in the trainee time I had only one stay in Italy. But over the course of the career with Wacker globalizing itself, that became very interesting. And of course, it's different to sell a car over a chemical product. But at the end, in managing jobs and as well in I would say executing jobs, you always deal with numbers and people. And that makes also the chemical industry very, very interesting because you always meet twice and you always meet three times. It's a very, I would say, interesting industry by how the people interact with each other. And I like that very much, to be honest. And I can only tell young people, no matter whether IT or business or sales, try the chemical industry.
And do you also nearshore IT teams, or are you centralizing all digital work from Munich?
No, we for example, the data scientist team, we have also mirrored into North America and China, which is a matter of the fact that there are certain, different rules in terms of managing data in China and the US compared to the European legacy frame, so to speak. But we, as part of the startup ecosystem, we also interact with those startups wherever they are. Mainly from Europe, but also in the Valley, etc. So it really depends on area of competence. What we don't do is we don't go for offshoring or something like this. So we have really most of the competencies here. And this is very important because especially with new ways of working, like more agile, Scrum-based teams, etc., you need to have the people in the room rather than virtually distributed around the world.
And what would you say? And we are now come a little bit to the end of the podcast. We are almost talking now for an hour, which is when you listen about like B2B digitalization, you would not have expected. What would you say is your biggest challenge? So if you could choose like one thing, like 100 more people for your team, 100 million more in funding, more board exposure for your projects, what is the biggest challenge, or what would make you much faster in achieving your digital goals?
Maybe Axel can start. Yeah, from the customer side, I would say it's change, because even our customers are relatively conservative, and change management is not only concerning your own employees. That's one of the aspects, but also your own customers. And I would even, because I see their wave coming, and I would appreciate if some of the pressure from the market would be even higher on us, which would help us internally to even gain more speed. And then the second, of course, money is of the issue in every business. We are family-owned business. We look at every dollar we spend. So we have to spend it very wisely. And of course, I would like to have more playing money to try out things. But this is currently, I would say, not difficult. But we are going into a phase of where the economy has to think very diligently where to spend the money, and so do we. But I think that's right at the end. So I have no big wish to how to further, I would say, pursue this. I'm very proud of what we achieved at Wacker as a Wacker Digital team after 2.5 years. It's a 10 years journey. I think we are reaching milestones now. And as Dirk said, we are just a catalyst. And it's always when I meet a person in the lobby or in the restaurant or anywhere from Wacker say, we're doing this now, and we're doing this now, and we try this, and it has something to do with digital, then I see, okay, our work paid off.
Oh, there's hardly anything to add to this. I think the one topic Axel mentioned I would like to highlight also from my perspective is, as we now see some economic, let's say, turn, my wish would be that we really have achieved, let's say, a sustainable increase of our environment in terms of energy level around us. I mean, a catalyst work in the way that they increase the energy level of the processes you put the catalyst in. And if you have created a stable condition, then you can revoke the catalyst and the environment stays on the higher level of energy. And I hope that with what we have achieved so far and the topics Axel has mentioned, we have created a stable environment so that even if the environment becomes more stormy now, people still believe in digitalization as part of the solution space. And so this would be then the ultimate goal that we could have achieved till now in this 2.5 years that we are down the road.
I think that sounds especially attractive now at these times to BMW employees, because it seems to be rough times ahead, especially there in the automotive industry.
I mean, we talk about Wacker today, but what we shared as Turtle Insight is really something that is applicable across all industries. I mean, it's those entrepreneurial thinking, those strengths. Is very much related to many mid-sized companies, mid-sized family-owned businesses here in Germany. If they those companies go back to their original strengths, they don't have to fear any competition from any startup place because they are by the nature of their business, the startups themselves. And so therefore it's not something related and applicable for Wacker, like Axel and myself shown during this podcast. Is really something that could be taken as a kind of checklist into other businesses as well.
And maybe one last question from my side. Is there an event upcoming where like potential partners, potential people that want to look a little bit deeper into the digital ecosystem of Wacker can have a deep dive? Will you be at the DMX Expo, or will you have your own Wiesen event from Wacker?
No, we don't have this kind of stuff. I mean, as we are B2B, this kind of market exposure is not our, let's say, purpose or our target. Nevertheless, we have some of the information we have shared. We have on our internet site, which is taking chances together. So www.takingchancetogether.com. There you find a set of information. And the second part is, but this is only by invitation only. That means they either have to contact you, Axel, or myself. We have introduced so-called after-work events, which takes place 2 times a quarter. And this is where we give certain topic impulses to the organization. For example, like augmented reality, AI, last time new work. The next one will be in I think 3 weeks round about cybersecurity. And we have a couple of hundred participants and sometimes also external guests that just invoke what we are sharing there, and they are then also somehow become part of the ecosystem. And Axel is also managing a group of CDOs in Munich, and maybe you can add something, Axel?
Yeah, we have a really interesting group of CDOs in Munich. We founded a couple of years ago. These are now 35 CDOs from all sizes of companies, mid and bigger companies, Siemens, Osram, Wacker, BMW, unfortunately not anymore. But we are meeting every other month. And by the way, also once at the Oktoberfest, and having exchange between our digital leaders. And this is very interesting because as you can imagine with your podcast, you hear sometimes the same stories. And we can exchange that even in this case, even without the help of consultants or facilitators, just amongst us. Very interesting. And also what I would like to mention, because perhaps some of our employees are listening to this podcast, we have the Digital Weeks coming, which we had in overseas. But now we will have them in September in Burghausen and in October in Munich. And there's a little fair, a little show of, I would say, digital milestones and digital projects. And our employees can inform themselves about what's going on in the Wacker digital world. So Wacker, we're not big enough to go out to digital trade shows or the internet fairs and shows. But we go to recruitment fairs to recruit people. So the alumni and the absolvents and the people who are now making their bachelors and their masters, they can inform themselves about Wacker at these events. And they always can contact us on LinkedIn or through email and the internet.
Yeah, maybe we just put your email address at the show notes in the podcast, and then they can contact you if there's some interested people. So that's from my side here. So it was like super entertaining and interesting. So I have a lot of things to think about now, and I've really underestimated the momentum of the chemical industry. So lots of thanks from my side here for being guests on our podcast. I hope the sound quality will be good enough, but I'm pretty sure we have managed that.
Yes, thank you very much for having us.
Thank you so much from my side as well. It's really exciting to learn the key challenges you have on both the front end and on the operations side, and also in your IT architecture. It's really cool to see that on the B2B, in the B2B sphere, so much digitization is taking place. So thanks so much for sharing the Wacker story in our podcast today.
And thanks also from my side, and looking forward. We have more to share, so it's more was a kind of greeting from the kitchen. So let's stay tuned.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. At the next episode, you will listen to Huub Vermeulen, the CEO of bol.com, one of the Benelux leading marketplaces. They are even able to compete with Amazon, and in the podcast, Huub will explain why this is the case and why there is no need for fear of Amazon in the Benelux market.